Hey, welcome to From Scratch Ranch and our modern farmhouse build. Jason here, and we've made some progress this week. We have footers. We got our concrete footers poured. What is a footer, you may ask? Well, basically it's a foundation to the foundation wall. It's a broader, deeper base of concrete that the block foundation wall will sit on. And it's about 2 feet deep, which is below our frost line, and 2 feet wide. Which gives it that wider base to distribute all of that weight of the foundation wall. So once all the rains finally stopped and it dried out enough to where the crew can come out here, bring their excavator and dig these trenches. What they first did though is, before I had all the pins, all the corners were pinned. What they did was take a mason line and string that mason line from pin to pin to pin, and it outlined the entire house. Including the front porch as a separate whole entity because the front porch is going to be concrete. And so they outlined it all with that mason string and then came back with spray paint and painted the line on the ground. So that way when they came through with the excavator, they knew exactly the lines to dig. Then they set up their rotary laser level and found the grade that they needed to start from at the top right corner, way up there. That's the high point. So they set it for that, on where that height needed to be of the footer, and then they made all their measurements from that. So the two-man crew on that part with the excavator, they had one person in the excavator digging and another person with the laser level rod to measure and guide where they needed to dig and how deep and where to go. So then they had a second crew of 2 people come behind the excavator as it was digging and lay out all of the rebar. So 3 strands of rebar were laid and bent around all of the corners. And then they elevated the rebar using these supports here. So 3 of them in each one of these slots here, and it raised it above ground, I guess that's about 3 inches or so. And then they tied it all together using some metal wire to make sure it was all secure and not gonna move, and tied each section together as the long rebar sections, spliced them together using that metal wire. Then the next day, the concrete truck showed up and a pump truck to pump all that concrete down here and start putting it in, filling in the footers. The footers are 2 feet deep because it goes down below the frost line about 2 feet wide, right? And so it's a lot of concrete. There's 3 full trucks of concrete came out here, and that's quite a bit actually. And so they poured all that concrete in here. Now, the thing is, this is a hillside. It's kind of hard to tell here, but it's a hillside, and it's a 4-foot drop from that top corner up over there where they started the first pin at the high point, all the way down to the bottom where I'm standing right now, which is going to be the tallest point, or our great room. Will be right here with the view out that direction. And so this is the low point. So what they did is used 2x8s. They were coming through and cutting 2x8s to the width of the footer. So here you can see the 2x8, and they just stair-stepped it all the way up. So every time they had a different increment, using that a different increment of 8, because the blocks are 8 inches tall, the concrete blocks that they're going to use for the foundation. So they just used a 2x8 to, stair step this up, and they used the laser level to determine where they needed to do that. And as you can see here, there's stair steps all the way up, and then a double right here. So that's 16 inches tall because this was a steeper section of the foundation or the hillside. There's another step up right there. So in total, there are 6 steps up of 8 inches, which makes it a 48-inch wall on the downslope down there. So the tallest will be on the backside down there at 48 inches tall. Now that only gets to the height of the footer here, which is still below ground. So in the front of the house here, the front part of the porch, this will be the front part of the porch, that will probably be 3 blocks high, I assume, to get that up off the ground somewhat because these are steps down onto the front here, and this is still sloping a bit. So I would assume about 3 blocks high on the front, 6 in the back at the bottom of the hill down there. And so that would be a total of 9 blocks to get all the way to the top down there. So 9 times 8 is 72. So it'll be a 6-foot wall minimum on the downside where the deck then will go over. So I'll be able to, you know, probably at least get under that deck pretty easily. So what we're gonna do here in the front, since we're gonna do a concrete porch, this, what I'm standing on right now, is the footer for the front of the house. And then this up here is the footer for the front porch, the outside part of the front porch, the front part of it. And they're gonna put a concrete wall in there. Now, on the front side of the block wall here on the front of the house, they'll put another block so that that concrete slab for the porch will actually have something to sit on. It won't like sink down into the ground in front of the foundation of the house. It'll actually be packed in separately, and it's gonna be, you know, lower than the actual floor of the house. So that since it's set down as a separate level than the house, it's gonna have basically 2 rows of block right here in the front here. So a full block for the foundation of the house, and then a half block, or an L-shaped block, I guess, the way that the front part would be knocked out and filled in. So it gives it a nice foundation for that concrete slab to sit on the, you know, house side of the porch. More to come on that when they actually do that work, so you can see what that actually looks like. It's hard to kind of explain. So another thing to make note of is down over here, there's a piece of rebar sticking out of the footer, pretty tall. It looks like it's about 3 feet out of the ground. So it's right here at the corner of the house. Again, this line right here is going to be the house. This other line going around is the wraparound porch. So this whole front part is actually the concrete front porch. So this is the front of the house, the front corner. And what that rebar is, it's called a Ufer Ground, and it's named after Herbert Ufer. And what that is, it connects down, it's tied into the rebar that's encompassing the entire footer, right, all the way around. And since it's all tied together with all that metal wire, and this rebar connected to it, and then into the ground, what that does, it's an encapsulated conductor all the way around, concrete encapsulated, and it creates an electrode. So it's grounding the entire foundation to the ground. So it's pretty brilliant, right? The concrete itself has water in it, moisture, and even though it dries out, it will always have moisture in it and will always kind of absorb more moisture from the ground itself. So with that moisture in the concrete and then the metal conductive material with the rebar all the way around, it creates the perfect electrode to ground the entire foundation. All right, well, that was some progress this week, but I think things are gonna slow down a bit. It's getting close to Christmas, and the weather is gonna be turning on us. We've got a massive cold front coming through just like the rest of the country, and we're gonna get even down below 0. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hit that like button if you did, and make sure you're subscribed if not subscribed already, so you can stay up to date on everything we're doing out here on this modern farmhouse build at From Scratch Ranch. So until next time, keep living the dream.